I'm so glad you're interested in stained glass. I thought I'd share a quick overview of the different steps that you're going to learn in the basics class. The first thing you're going to do is choose your pattern. A beginner-friendly pattern lets you explore rather than get frustrated. So we'll cover a few things to look out for, like hinge joints and gaps. The next thing you do is choose your glass, whatever you like. But you're going to pay attention to the way the pattern or the texture of the glass can either make or break your piece. I use a silhouette cameo machine to cut the pattern pieces after a lot of trial and error. It keeps the gap perfect because you need a tiny little bit of space to allow for the copper foil. So you're going to stick your pattern onto the smooth side of your glass and then you're ready to cut. Although it's not called cutting, it's called scoring. So every score that you make has to go from one edge of the glass to the other edge of the glass. You can't stop halfway through because glass is going to run across the score from end to end. You'll either use a pair of running pliers or some grozers to take the glass apart or to pull pieces of glass off that you don't want there. The next step is grinding. Grinding smooths the edges of the glass, giving you a clean edge for the foil to stick to. You always grind wet. The water safely removes the glass dust, so it makes it safer and it just works better having that lubrication. Once your pieces fit together nicely, it's time to start foiling. You use copper foil. So what copper foil is copper on one side and then an adhesive on the other. It comes in a couple of different sizes depending on what it is that you want to do, but we'll get into that more in the class. So you're going to be wrapping the copper foil around the edges of the glass. This gives the metal or the solder something to stick to. In order for that sticking to work, you're going to have to make sure that you use what we call flux. So you put flux onto the copper foil, and this is what makes the solder behave. Your soldering iron has to be temperature controlled. You melt the solder with your soldering iron, and while you're doing this, you're touching that copper foil so that it runs along that copper foil margin. Probably about 90% of people find this the hardest part of stained glass. So there's a bit of a knack that takes some practice for you to get nice smooth solder lines. The more you do it, the better you get. So once you finish soldering, you have to wash your piece very, very well to make sure that you get all of the flux off. That flux is it's a very powerful chemical, so it will ruin your glass and also it will prevent the patina from taking if you're going to use patina. So once your piece is beautiful and clean, the next thing that you do, if you don't want to keep your solder lines silver, you're going to apply a patina. The most common patinas are copper and black. It hides a lot of flaws when it comes to the soldering, but it also looks lovely. You leave it on your piece for say up to about 5 or 10 minutes and then you do a quick rinse. Once it's completely dry, then you're ready to polish. You can use carnauba wax. This is very commonly found in car polish, and this is going to make sure that you keep your piece nice and sparkling and free of oxidation, which is that white buildup that you'll see on some pieces. And that's it. You're going to break glass, you're going to grind it, you're going to apply hot metal and chemicals, and at the end of that, you're going to have something wonderful. Now, I hope you found this video useful and you've got a better idea on what goes into every single piece. You're going to have a blast. I'll see you on the next one.